Okay, eighth grade, we're at lesson 8-3, which is entitled Graphing Linear Equations by Using the Intercepts. So let's get started. I'm on the bottom of page 381, and I'm looking at example 1, and we're going to do some similar problems to what you see for example 1. If you look at this line right here, and somebody says to you, where does this line cross the x-axis? Where does it cross the x-axis? Hopefully you would say it crosses at location 4, 0. And you would be right. In the world of mathematics, we would say that the x-intercept of this particular situation is 4. The 4, it crosses the 4 location on the x-axis. If I said to you, where does this line cross the y-axis? Hopefully you would say location 0, 2, and you would be right. And the y-intercept for this particular situation would be the number 2 because it crosses the y-axis at 2 spots above the origin. Let's try it again with another line. What if I put a line that went through this dot and this dot? And I said to you, hey, what is the x-intercept of that particular situation? Well, hopefully you would say the x-intercept is -1. And where is the y-intercept? The y-intercept is +4 in this case. Okay, let's move on to another line. What if I drew a line through this dot and this dot? And I said to you, what is the x-intercept in this case? And what is the y-intercept in this case? Well, it crosses the x line at -3, and it crosses the y line at -1. Okay. Now, what about some strange ones? What if it's a line that goes like this? Where does it cross the x-intercept? It crosses at -2. Where does it cross the y-axis? It doesn't. So the answer to that part is none. There is no y-intercept in this particular case. There is an x-intercept, -2, but there is no y-intercept. What if I drew a line right here and said to you, what is the x and the y-intercept? Well, there is no x-intercept because it's never going to cross the x-axis. But there is a y-intercept of +1. So we write none for the x-intercept, and we write the number 1 for the y-intercept. Look at example 2 on the top of the next page, page 382. Page 382. It says, find intercepts from equations. Now, the important part of this is look at the yellow box at the top of 382 because it gives you some ways in which we're going to do this. Bullet 1, if we're going to find the x-intercept, we make the y equal 0 in the equation and we solve for x. And then it says in the second bullet to find the y-intercept, we let the x equal 0 in the equation and we solve for y. And they have an example where they say find the x-intercept and the y-intercept for the graphing of y equals x minus 6. Okay? They followed those rules and came up with an x-intercept of 6 and a y-intercept of -6. Okay, well, let's do the same thing. What if somebody gives me this equation, y equals x plus 4, and they want us to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept? Well, the rule says at the top of the page, to find the x-intercept, make the y into 0 and solve for x. What does x have to be? Well, isn't it -4 plus 4 that would give me 0? X is -4. Our x-intercept is -4, and I'm going to write that over here. X-intercept, -4. Okay, now, what if I wanted to find the y-intercept? Well, at the top of the page, the second dot says, if I want to find the y-intercept, I make the x 0, and I solve for the y. 0 plus 4 is 4, so my y-intercept happens to be positive 4. X-intercept is negative 4, y-intercept is positive 4. In other words, the line looks like this. This is the line y equals x plus 4. Everything along this line is a solution for y equals x plus 4. Let's try it again. Let's make it a little more complicated. What if I have the equation y equals 2x plus 1? If I want to find the x-intercept, I've been told to make the y into a 0 and solve for x. Okay, how do I get x by itself? Let's subtract 1 from both sides of the equation. And then let's divide both sides of the equation by 2. And x ends up being a negative 1/2. So my x-intercept is negative 1/2. That's my first answer. If I want to find the y-intercept, the second bullet at the top of the page says, make the x into a 0 and solve for y. 2 times 0 plus 1 is 1. My y-intercept has to equal 1. So if I draw that, negative 1/2 on the x-axis is right there. Positive 1 on the y-axis is there. The line that represents this equation is this line right here. This line is all of the solutions of y equals 2x plus 1. Let's try it again, once more. What if somebody said, hey, here's an equation. X plus y equals 7. X plus y equals 7. If I want to find the x-intercept, the rule says make the y into a 0 and solve for x. What does x have to be here? It has to be 7, right? 7 plus 0 is 7. X is 7. So my x-intercept is 7. If I want to figure out what the y-intercept is, I make the x into 0, and I solve for y. Doesn't y have to be 7 as well? Yes, it does. So in this particular case, one of the dots could be here. One of the dots could be here. If I draw a line connecting the dots, this line represents the equation of x plus y equals 7. Okay, let's go on to example number 3. Example number 3. Well, example number 3 is pretty similar to example 2, isn't it? They're just making those a little bit more difficult to solve, so let's try to do that. What if I had something like 2x plus y equals 4? And somebody said, hey, what are the x and y intercepts for this particular situation? And example 3 also wants you to graph it. So if I want to find the x-intercept, the first thing I do is I make the y into 0. Isn't 2x plus 0 equal to 2x? And doesn't x have to be 2 in this case? Because 2 times 2 is 4? You bet. So my x-intercept is 2. Okay, now I want to find the y-intercept. So I make the x into 0, and I solve for y. Isn't this 0? What's 0 plus y? Isn't that y? So therefore, doesn't y equal 4? Yep. So my y-intercept is equal to 4, and therefore I can put a dot here and a dot here, and the graphing of the line of this particular equation looks like this. Let's see, what was that equation again? It was 2x plus y equals 4, I think. Okay? Oh, about example 5 on the bottom of page 383? Example 5 on the bottom of 383. If somebody says to you, hey, how would I graph y equals -2? How would I graph that? Well, they already told me that the y value is -2, so I can put a dot here at -2. They make no mention at all of an x. What does that mean? It means that this line is not going to go through x at all. So therefore, I draw a line going through -2 on the y-axis, and this is the line for the equation y equals -2. What if somebody says, hey, graph this equation, x equals +1. X equals +1. Well, once again, they tell me the x-intercept is 1, but they don't mention anything about a y-intercept or a y value. That means that the line that goes through this dot is not going to cut through the y-axis, and therefore, this one's going to be a vertical line that never will cross the y-axis. Okay, those are problems similar to example 5. I think we're going to stop it right there. Okay.